Greta Van Fleet, are they just Led Zeppelin copycats, or can they develop their sound on their third album, The Battle of Gardens Gate, to make them a truly unique and a new stunning force in the world of rock music? Keep on watching to hear my review of their latest album. Welcome back to Rocker's Beer Review. Today we're going to be reviewing an album, and unlike a lot of rock albums that I've reviewed before on the channel, this one isn't a sort of classic one from the 80s or early 90s. Now this is an album that's brand new. It literally came out within the last sort of few weeks. This is Greta Van Fleet, and this is their third album, The Battle of Gardens Gate. Now, if anyone's not heard of Greta Van Fleet, they've been described by critics and also, fans alike, that they're a bit of a Led Zeppelin copycat. Certainly on their first few albums, the singer sounds amazingly like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. They're an American band though, they're from Michigan in the USA. But I think this album has sort of shaken off some of those comparisons with the likes of Messrs of Page and Plant. And the third album, I think, is one that really deserves a good listen to. So this is my review of Battle of Gardens Gate. So, and although at least, lead singer Josh Kiska, it still has a sort of slightly Robert Plant twang, I always thought, even on those earlier albums, that he sounded more like a 70s era Geddy Lee from Rush. His voice has definitely changed on this album, though. It's almost like he's much more of a shrieker than a wailer, I suppose, than Robert Plant. He's lost a little bit. I don't know if he's lost it, but I think he's changed a little bit the timbre of his voice. So he sounds less like Robert Plant now. There's still certainly some comparisons, and certainly on some songs more so than others. But really, the new album, they've still got that real 70s sort of classic rock style, but they've moved away from the sort of more folky rock of Led Zeppelin and more of an American sort of rock, like with comparisons to bands of that era, like Aerosmith, early Aerosmith, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and even on sort of female-fronted bands like Heart and even Janis Joplin. He's certainly got a voice that can get to that sort of level, really. Then they've also sort of combined a much more sort of southern rock sort of sound along the lines of bands like the big 90s bands, the Black Crowes, or maybe recent bands like Whiskey Myers. So that's what they sort of sound at, but let's go through some of those tracks. So the album opener, Heat Above, opens up with a massive big organ sound before the drums come in, and then there's a much more acoustic guitar sound. It sounds nothing like Led Zeppelin until Josh's vocals really come in, but he sounds more like Geddy Lee than even Geddy Lee does. It's a slow burning track and it's got choirs in it, but it's a real showcase really for Josh's voice and how his voice is starting to change a little bit and really finding his own voice to some extent. The second track is My Way, and it soon picks up the pace. It still sounds like something that the Black Crowes would have done in the 90s. It's an average track, and we're still yet to hear Jay Kiska, the guitarist, guitar chops, until the end, that is. And then he lets rip with a real sort of face-melting bluesy solo. It really showcases off some of his guitar playing. For me, though, the album really starts with a really stunning track, and that's track 3, and this is Broken Bells. It's got more of a Led Zepp sound, this one. It's more epic, a little bit more overblown, and it's really, in my opinion, it's the Greta Van Fleet that I want to hear more of. It's a great track, slowly builds up. Josh's vocals are now a little bit more Robert Plant and less whiny, a little bit more refined. And Jake's guitar is understated until the last minute, really, and then he starts channeling his innermost Jimmy. But it's more Jimi Hendrix than Jimmy Plant. Built by Nations continues that sort of Led Zeppelin theme with a lot more shrieks and wails from Josh, and a riff sounding a little bit along the lines of Black Dog. A drummer even tries to create his best John Bonham drum fills on this song as well. It does seem when they go more Led Zeppelin, they're better for it, and certainly the next track, Age of Machine, testifies this. We're now in sort of firm Led Zepp epic type of mode. It's a slow burning track, but it culminates in another brilliant guitar solo. The next few tracks bob along, nothing really sort of jumps out really. Then we get Light My Love, and it's a real sort of sing-along ballad really with lots of strings in it. And this is where the comparison with Led Zeppelin is almost like non-existent. However, Caravel drags us back into that sort of Led Zeppelin territory. It's got a real early 90s sort of almost grunge sound. It's something that Soundgarden could have written if they were from New Orleans opposed to Seattle. The best track though for me is Saved Until Last, and that is The Weight of Dreams. It's nearly 9 minutes long. It's a real 70s sounding epic track. Starts slowly. Sounds a little bit like, reminds me a bit of Battle of Evermore by Led Zeppelin. And it sort of continues on this sort of slow burn until about the 5-minute mark. And then this is when you see the Jimmy Page comparisons. It's got where he does a massive overblown guitar solo. It's 3 minutes of him basically shredding his guitar, a real bluesy sort of sound. You know, although there's comparisons with Jimmy Page, this solo to me, it almost reminds me of the solo of Freebird. I mean, I don't think I could give a better recommendation if his guitar solo sounds like Freebird, because it's one of the best guitar solos of all time. It certainly picks up, but even though it's nearly 9 minutes, it seems to end too quickly and you just want to play it again. It's a really great track. It's a great ending of an album. And it's really sort of brought me into really loving the band, really. So that's Greta Van Fleet, nearly difficult to say, the album that came out in April 2021. And we're filming this in May 21. It can be streamed on Spotify, no doubt other streaming platforms as well. It's worth listening to, even if you're just listening to those 3 key tracks: Broken Bells, Age of Machine, and The Weight of Dreams. I don't understand why bands like Led Zeppelin, that sound a bit like Led Zeppelin, get such a hard time. I mean, Whitesnake, to some extent, were one of my favourite bands. They had, you know, David Coverdale was always compared with Robert Plant, and he criticised for doing so, really. And then in the 80s and 90s, there was a band called Kingdom Come, another American band that had a very Led Zeppelin sound. I'm going to do an album ranking for them soon because they're another one of my favourite bands, but they used to get criticised a lot for that. And now Greta Van Fleet, and I think they've realised they've got to move away. They've got enough quality and enough songwriting skills and their own unique voice that don't need to be a Led Zeppelin copycat band, and they are starting to develop. I'm interested to see which direction they'll go in next. So I hope you've enjoyed this review for the Greta Van Fleet third album. I'm going to be doing more sort of album reviews of albums as soon after they come out. So what have we got coming out? Which new releases have we got coming out? Well, a band that's quite different than Greta Van Fleet, and that's Helloween. They've got a new album coming out in the next month or so. So I'm going to make sure I review that soon after that comes out, let you know what that's all about. And also, after that, we've also got the new album, the debut album by Eddie Van Halen's son, Wolfgang Van Halen. So his band's called Mammoth. That's coming out as well. I think it's in June or July. So I'm going to review that as well. So I want to do a few new ones. But I will say, if you're watching this video and you've managed to find your way to the end of it, that I'm going to be doing a sort of a retro type of series of reviews across the summer months, where I'm going to be reviewing some of my favourite bands' albums, pretty much from the 80s and early 90s, with a sort of guitar hero sort of theme. You know, some of my favourite guitarists and some of their albums that they've done, and there's going to be some ones that you think, yep, he's definitely a guitar hero. I've heard of him. He's the biggest guitar hero there is. And then some others that maybe people haven't heard of. So I'm going to do a series of that, but so keep watching the channel to find that out. If you are new to it and you've just stumbled upon this because, I don't know, you found this review for Greta Van Fleet, please subscribe to the channel. Yes, we do quite a few beer reviews on there, craft beer, but we do a lot of rock ranking reviews. You can check out the playlist for all the different rock ranking we've done for a lot of classic rock, heavy metal, progressive metal bands, and also obviously the rock reviews like the one you're watching now. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe, really helps the channel. If you want to see more reviews, let me know if there's any bands that you want me to do more features on, because I want to do more of these sort of rock type of things. Maybe not just reviews or rankings, but maybe a discussion group. If you're a YouTuber and you're watching this and you're into rock music, then please get in touch, because I'd really like to do some sort of joint venture sort of stuff as well, certainly discussing rock music and the sort of bands that I'm into and the sort of bands that that I grew up listening to. So hope you've enjoyed it, and until the next one, keep on rocking.